Hi everyone, I'm here with a bare face and today I am not going to be doing a get ready with me or a 3 looks 1 palette. I know, shocker. I just picked this and I have so many new spots and they hurt. I have a new thing from Patrick Ta, just came in the mail. For once I actually got it in 2 days. I was super shocked. And I kind of breezed through it on Sephora, so I didn't really look at the details fully. And what I thought I was getting was 3 blushes and 3 highlighters, but it turns out that each duo kind of is a little bit different. So this is like a glowy blush and this is a cream blush. And this is like a glowy blush, and this is a cream blush, and then this is like a highlighter, and then this is like more of a glossy highlighter. Joke's on me for not reading, but I was just very excited. I do kind of sort of collect them. I don't really buy his singles because they have just so much product. There's no reason for me to pay full price for his singles. I will also do a comparison. I'll hold them up side by side with the other one I have from last year. So yeah, so I have a clean brush. I'm gonna do one on one cheek and one on the other cheek, and then I will see if I need to clean my face to try out the highlighter duo, I will, but otherwise I'll just do it on top of these and we'll see what happens. So I just got this from Phytosurgeons. It's designed for their cream blushes, but it seems like it should be good for any cream blush formula, honestly. So I'm gonna start off with the pinky one first, which looks very similar to the pink one in the last year's palette. It's called Giving Flirty. And I'm just gonna start working it in. I have nothing on my face down. Okay, so I do know that his cream blush formula is generally it's like about the dewiest formula I'll tolerate. And this one so far seems like it might be. Okay, so I can definitely see there's some micro glitters in the formula. You can really see it giving that glow to my cheek. And this also is feeling a lot more moisturizing and emollient and dewy than last year's, I think, by comparison. I could still see this working, but probably not over powder or over a matte base. Okay, and then I'm going to take the other side of the brush that's clean, and I'm going to go into Giving Sunkissed, which is on the other side. And this looks like a lighter version of She's Baked, which is the one duo in the holiday palette that I literally used once and never again because it's too dark for me. His creams are generally a lot more buildable than his powders. His powders, you definitely have to be careful, but his creams are pretty nice. And the reason I do these over bare face is just so you can see what it looks like. Okay, and you can really see how that's a lot of glow coming through. This almost is giving me vibes of the Cosmetics blush formula, the baked ones. This literally is like reminding me of that, but it's a cream. It's got this exact same feeling, very glowy, lots of glimmers to it, some micro glitters strewn throughout, really nice golden shift is coming through. That's definitely reminding me of Cosmetics like to the letter. Okay, so you can see Sunkissed is on this cheek and Flirty is on this cheek. This is a lot more pink and this is a lot more kind of burnt orange. And as you can see, they both sheared out pretty readily. I feel like I applied a lot onto both sides, but it just makes them get like shinier and shinier, honestly. And this video I'm mostly publishing as a reference point for you guys who are on the fence about it to decide if you want it or not. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he releases these as singles in the next couple of months. He did that last year. This kind of seems to be his way of like testing the waters, seeing what people think about it. Okay, ISO is 100. I think you can see it a little bit better now. You can really see what it looks like. Again, my skin is in terrible condition. I just can never seem to get it to heal. I used to have such clear skin and I feel like this summer just took my skin and threw it in the garbage and I'm so frustrated. So now I'm going to move on to the powder, and for that I'm going to use brush from the IT Cosmetics, and I'm just going to use each corresponding shade on top of the cream. The top packaging is no longer mirrored. It's more of a kind of soft finish, so the fingerprints don't show as much, which is nice. Alright, so let's go into... Whoop! And see, I tap lightly and this is how much comes off. Okay, I tapped off the excess. This is from the Flirty. It's really gonna stick down. And the blushes also have some glimmer to them as well. It's a kind of a glowier blush. It's not as glowy as the cream, but that definitely adds to the glow. Yeah, these are very softly pressed powders, so be careful. And there's no residue left on the brush. It's so soft it all just transferred to my face nice. So I'm just tapping lightly. As you can see, it's more of like that burnt orange. Kind of reminds me of Faded Clementine, which I don't currently actually have. I never really used it very much because it was too bronzy. This is like less bronzy than Faded Clementine, but it gives Faded Clementine vibes for sure. Really pretty. It kind of is grabbing onto the powder, so I have to put a little more elbow grease into the blending, but I imagine if you just used it on its own, it would be really pretty as well. And of course, you know, with my skin being no foundation, all of the spots underneath my skin that the powder is kind of showing, so it's not patchiness, it's just that my skin has a lot of kind of little micro bumps in it, and you can kind of see how the glowiness of the blush catches that a little bit. So not the most flattering for texture. Of course, if I had foundation on top, it wouldn't be as visible, but you can definitely see how it kind of is emphasizing my micro bumps a little bit. I'm trying to get rid of them. I am trying. So here you can see Sunkissed and Flirty. So that's what that looks like. Really pretty. Definitely two very different shades. They don't look exactly identical, so you're not getting two of the same shades using this. Let's look at the Giving Glossy. So this top shade is literally just a gloss. So I'm actually gonna, yeah, you could just put it on your lips even. This is an extremely emollient gloss. It is not the same as the Natasha Denona gloss at all. I could even just put it on my lips as a lip balm, which is hilarious. It is so balmy. So yeah, this is not a texture I like to put on my face. Sorry, I couldn't resist. I had to put it. So for comparison, I'm just going to show you guys. My current favorite balmy highlighter is from Natasha Denona Dream. Alright, so on the back of my hand, here is Dream right here, which as you can see has that nice beautiful sheen to it. And then here, this clear, see how it's clear? It's literally just clear. The Giving Gloss Duo, it looks tinted in the pan, but I think it's just reflecting whatever light is in the packaging. But as you can see, when I put it on the back of my hand, it is completely clear. So it is literally just a clear balm. I could definitely see it being pretty, like maybe right on top of the skin under foundation, or maybe like for super editorial photo shoots or something, or it does feel nice on the lips, I will say. But I don't think this is going to be something that I use that often. I don't know if this one's for me, but we'll try it. Let's see if it breaks up the blush. I'm gonna also put some on my chin. So do you see that wet, shiny look I just gave my chin because I'm literally putting what feels like lip balm on my chin? So that's on like my chin, my nose, the center of my face. And I'll even put some on my eyelid. It's very interesting. So on my eyelid, it just gives my eyelid a glossy appearance. This is going to be a very polarizing shade in this palette. You either like this kind of formula or you absolutely hate it. But as I put it on my eyelids, I put it on the center of my face. I'll put it on my other cheek. Feels, it has a sticky, balmy consistency to it. And so that is me glossing up my entire face and eyelids. Honestly, it almost borderline looks oil slicky, I will say. But I could see it, you know, it looks really good in a photo. It looks really good on camera, but in real life, I look kind of sweaty where I put it. I will just kind of put that out there. It is very balmy, very emollient, very hydrating feeling. I'm gonna look closely in the mirror and see if it took off the powder, and I think it did take off just a little bit of the powder when I look at it really up close. It's an interesting formula, I will say. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Okay, I'm gonna wipe all this makeup off and kind of just re-moisturize my face a little bit, and then I'm going to do powder only because I really want to see how the powder highlighter looks. So I'm gonna do the powder highlighter on top of just the powder blush, and I want to see what the powder blushes look like without the cream, because the cream has all that micro sparkle that is kind of showing up on my cheek, and I really want to see what it would look like with just the powder. So let me remove all of this and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I took things off. I also did take a very light layer of some pressed setting powder just to kind of smooth out my pores and even out my skin just a little bit, and now I'm going to go back in. I'm only going to use the powders, and I'm just going to use that as a chance to test out this powder highlighter, which I'm excited for. So again, I always pick up too much, so again, we're putting the Giving Flirty on this side of my face. It is actually, see, now that I can see it on its own, I can actually see that this is not as pigmented as last year's blush. Now that it's on its own, I can definitely see that, and I can see that it, on top of a lightly powdered base, it blends out really nicely, and it does have some glow to it. So I am seeing some micro sparkles in the powder blush as well. So yeah, both of these blushes are definitely kind of giving me M Cosmetics vibes in terms of like the baked blush from M Cosmetics. Kind of reminds me of that, where it's got that glimmer, and so as you turn your cheek, it almost like it's like a built-in highlighter. And you can see on my bare skin the texture that I think it is slightly enhancing my little bumps on my face. I'm gonna put on more than I usually would just to see what color it is. Very pretty. I do actually really like that shade. I'm not the biggest fan of super glowy blushes, So I am still questioning why I bought this. For some reason I thought it was like cream blushes and then powder highlighters, or powder blushes and cream highlighters. I didn't realize it was a little bit more kind of unique. I am happy to be of service to all the other people watching this video who might want to see what this looks like. Okay, so I actually really like this side a lot more. This color is so unique. I don't actually have a color like this in my collection, and the micro sparkle on this is a lot more manageable to me. It's not as intense as the one on this side. Yeah, I actually really like this shade. It's a lot more orange than I was expecting. It's actually super pretty. I like that a lot. Okay, I'm gonna take now a highlighter brush and I'm going to try the Giving Glossy. This is the powder highlighter. This seems like it's going to be more of a blush topper for me. It is rather deep looking on me, but we'll see. So it does seem to be more of like a chunkier formula. There's like thicker individual chunks coming off onto the brush. It blends out very nicely. Distributes nicely. It's kind of like a cross between a metallic highlighter and a diamond balm is the best way for me to describe it. I put some on my cheek, on my chin, see if it leaves a cast. It's actually quite... It actually has a really sheer base to it, so it actually is not pulling a specific color. On my finger you can see it's actually got a lighter base than expected. It does have a very slight cast on my nose when I turn my head, but I can get away with this. It looks, in the pan it looked kind of more corally bronzy to me, but once it's on the finger it definitely reads more kind of like a champagne, bronze tone champagne. I'm gonna put it on my eyelids just for fun. And you can really see on my eyelids what the finish looks like. The eyelids is a good place for me to see what a highlighter finish looks like because I can apply liberally. Okay, so you can see on my eyelid the translucent base, which gives it a glossy appearance. But this is definitely a powder highlighter for sure. There is some residual gloss on my eyelids from the previous swatch, but this highlighter also itself has a very wet appearance to it. I would say it definitely is giving me Revelations vibes, but I would personally think I like Revelations a little better. Okay, I have it on the back of my hand here, and I also have it kind of the residual swatches on my fingers. This is Revelations, and then this is the Patrick Ta, and then on the back of my hand, Revelations is right here. And then Patrick Ta is right here. So you can see there is a difference. This Revelations is a lot brighter, but I think they both actually kind of have a similar feel of translucency, see-through, where they kind of have a glass-like property to them where the base is not opaque. However, this one has slightly bigger chunks in it and this one is much more fine. So here's the back of my hand. So how many carats is right here. And you see how that one is truly translucent. Here it is on my middle finger here. Don't mean to flip you guys off, but here it is on my middle finger. Super translucent, practically no base whatsoever, just glittery goodness. So on the back of my hand you can see. And then versus Revelation having a slight base, and then Patrick Ta having a slight base, but a little more chunky. So I feel like Patrick Ta sits right between Diamond Bomb and Revelation, but then it's a little bit darker than both, because Diamond Bomb in How Many Carats is literally like white. Revelations is very, very light, and then Patrick Ta is a little bit more kind of close to the skin tone of the back of my hand, which is more tan than my face because I used to drive with no hand protection. Shame on me. Alright, and then I'm gonna hold them both up for comparison. And especially these two pinks, you can see these two pinks are going to be the most similar. Everything else though is going to be different. And then of course the glossy duo is just not even relevant. So I would say kind of this quad here and then this here. Alright, here is the back of my hand right here. These bottom two are from the new palette, and then this is the last year's palette, which all of these are available as singles. So you can see these are much lighter and have a lot more sheen to them. You can see the light of the shimmers catching on the lighting in my filming setup and reflecting it back, giving it a very glossy metallic appearance, whereas these just look creamy because there's no shimmer in these. So personally, I really don't like micro glitters in my blush very much. I have to really be in the mood for it. So M Cosmetics is like about the only glowy blush formula I have in my collection. And of course now I have these. So I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of these kinds of glowy blush formulas. I honestly bought this palette mostly blind because dropped on Sephora out of nowhere, and I really like Patrick Ta, so yes, I bought it not really knowing what I was getting into, so shame on me, but I knew I really wanted to have it in my collection just for collections purposes regardless. I hope that helps. And then lastly, I will do swatch comparisons of the powders. So the 2 blushes and then the 3 blushes, I'll do powder comparisons, and I will use a brush for that. My fingers are dirty first of all, so that's the biggest reason why. So I hope you understand. Okay, so here is my arm, and as you can see with brush swatches, it's not gonna look as intense as if I finger swatch them, which is why I prefer to do brush swatches of face products, because this is what it's gonna look like going onto your skin. So as you can see, these 3 blushes from last year's holiday blush palette can get very intense, very bright, and then these 2 by comparison are definitely much lighter, so I definitely think this palette is a lot less pigmented than last year's, so there's kind of the difference there. And the top palette also does have all those micro glitters in the blush versus the bottom being all matte. I will say the pinks are definitely super similar. This shade is not the same as this shade. This shade is much more of a bright pink coral. This one is much closer to this shade, but it's still more orange and lighter as opposed to this shade being more bronze with a lot more brown. This pink reminds me of Cherub, honestly. So just for comparison's sake, I also put Cherub on the heel of my palm here. It's very difficult to see though, Cherub is very sheer. So I will say this kind of is like a darker, more pigmented version of Cherub versus Cherub being barely visible. But yeah, there are definitely little tiny micro glitters in these top 2 up here. I'm not the biggest fan of micro glitters in my matte blushes. It's kind of like micro glitters in eyeshadow. I'm not the biggest fan of that either, so you'll want to take that into account when making a purchasing decision. But okay, I hope that this video helped you guys. The cream blushes have so much sparkle in them compared to the first release where the cream blushes are just straight pigment, no sparkles. That gloss is, I don't know, man, like I guess I could see it being used as a base and then you put powder highlighter on top and it sticks better, but by then you might have had other powder products underneath and the gloss is gonna break those up maybe, so I have a hard time really seeing a use for it, and that's 1/6 of the entire palette. It's definitely more experimental from him and it still feels on brand for him, and I can't necessarily say I'm super in love with it. I'm not like, oh my god, I bought it and I'm so happy. It's not like the Dream Face palette I have where I literally am like married to it now. We're a thing. Yeah, I don't know, but I hope these swatches helped you guys, and I hope I did a couple of comparisons, so I hope those helped you guys decide. And that's gonna be it from me. See you guys in the next video. Bye bye.